Aliens Explored is a podcast exploring famous and obscure cases of UFO sightings, alien abductions and other strange events from both a believing and a sceptical perspective whilst keeping an open mind. I'm Stu Jackson, a professional actor and amateur ufologist with a particular interest in the crop circle phenomenon. I'll be debating that otherworldly visitations are real. The truth is out there.
And I'm Neil Kelly. I'm a professional actor as well and used to work for the military as an intelligence analyst. I'll be arguing from a more doubtful point of view. I mean, it's all a bit far-fetched, isn't it?
There are few figures in ufology as controversial as Stan Romanek. There hardly seems to be any form of contact with an otherworldly presence that Stan hasn't allegedly had. But is he just a con artist, faking these events for attention, as many claim, or is there more to his story than meets the eye? Join myself and Neil here on Aliens Explored as we discuss the intriguing case of Stan Romanek.
Hello listeners and welcome back to Aliens Explored, your weekly look at all things mysterious in the skies and beyond. I'm one of your hosts, Neil Kelly.
And I'm your other host, Stu Jackson. And you actually prepared that intro today.
No, I didn't know, but I'm kind of getting the hang of it now. You know, I don't do a Boris Johnson and burble and mumble and
yes,
so much anymore. So
with waff,
yeah. Something in Latin. Manvidat cognitio viris.
Yes, indeed. We've got quite an interesting episode this week, haven't we? But how have you been keeping? I know you've been away, haven't you?
I've been abroad. I went to Holland for the weekend to meet my new grandson, who was born in November, and I met his dad for the first time as well.
Hey.
I already knew my daughter quite well.
Yes.
And as a consequence, I am now self-isolating. I've been forced to self-isolate for 10 days, although this is day 5, so if I wanted to, if I suddenly had a reason to, I would be allowed to pay probably about 150 quid for a PCR test to be released from captivity. Which is something I would only do if there was a good reason to go out. If, for instance, if someone offered me a good job that I'd have to be out for. But this is something that our viewers in the listeners in the UK might find very expensive. If you're thinking of going abroad, there's an extra sting in the tail because you have to pay for a PCR test within 72 hours of departure. A normal NHS one is not good enough. So I travelled to Holland on the Eurostar, so I paid about 130 quid. If you're flying somewhere, you have to pay for an even more expensive one, a fit-to-fly test. It's the same test, but you have to pay more, and that makes it more valid. What you don't, and you think that's it, and under the rules, I was able to get there and back on that one test. If you spend fewer than 3 days in the country, then you can come back. You don't need another test before you come back. But what you don't know is that as soon as you go abroad, you'll receive an email from the government saying you need to complete a passenger locator form in order to make your journey back. And this will be examined at passport control on your way back. But in order to be able to complete the online form, you have to actually book 2 more tests. One for day 8 and one for day 2 and one for day 8 of your isolation, which doesn't allow you to do anything. You just have to book those and pay for them. That cost me an extra 200 quid in order to be able to complete the form, to be able to go through the passport control. And then I got these 2 tests in the post. So I did one yesterday because it arrived late, and I've got another one to do on Monday. I have to do another one on Monday. But yeah, so there's that extra little expense which you won't find out about until you've actually set off on your journey. So I'm delivering a public service here. I don't think I'm letting any cats out the bag. I think I'm just letting people know what they need to know.
That's, they should tell you about these things up front, absolutely. But I must admit, I know and probably many of our listeners will be, perhaps, maybe I'm making assumptions here, I don't know. I know some listeners certainly will be against the idea of, passenger location forms and, being tracked and what have you. But I must admit, I'm very much on the side of, when it comes to COVID, no, anything that discourages people from travelling or going outside. Now, I mean, obviously, meeting your grandson, that's a huge thing, and that's a good, valid reason for travelling. But I don't think it should be easy either.
Here's another thing about that. I was only able to go because the Dutch government passed legislation saying, well, we're going to make it... No, people from outside the EU aren't allowed in. But and then they passed legislation to make exceptions, and they said anyone visiting a grandchild, I don't know if they specified for a first visit, but it would have been a first visit, a grandchild who has been born since March 2020 is allowed in. But I had to complete these forms. I had to sign them, and my daughter had to sign a page and send it to me so I could have it all together. It was never once checked by anyone.
Okay, but you're always under the risk of, if it's spot checks, you're under the risk of it being checked, which I think fair enough.
But I was asked a few times, because, you go by Eurostar, it means that in London you go through French border control, and then you're in the Schengen area, so you don't go through any more border controls.
No.
So the French border control officer asked me, what's the purpose of your visit? And I said, going to visit, I'm going to meet my grandson. And he said, oh, that's wonderful. And off I went. And then on the way back, because at Amsterdam now, they actually have passport control on the station. They've set up a little office at the end of the platform. Previously, you would just get on the Eurostar like a normal train, and then you would go through passport control in Brussels. Now they've moved it to Amsterdam. So Amsterdam, I went through first Dutch and then British control, and they both asked me what was the purpose of your visit, and I said, come to meet my grandson. They said, oh, that's lovely. Didn't ask for anything.
Like I said, that's fair enough, but that's the thing about spot checks, is you never know if you're going to be sort of required to provide this evidence. But I don't know, I'm at the extreme end of the spectrum when it comes to COVID. I think that, to be honest, we should all be staying indoors unless, your job is one where people will die if you don't do it. But we should all be staying indoors until everyone has had both vaccinations and waited 3 weeks. People think, oh, when I've had my second injection, that's it. No. 3 weeks after, that's when you're okay to go out. But until everybody's had that, it's a minefield out there. So I am at the extreme end. But I hear about, I've got 2 friends who have started new relationships during lockdown. Now, good luck to them, and I'm very happy for them. And I don't want this to sound wrong, but it's like, hang on, I haven't seen my own partner since 3rd of December.
I'm not,
because she lives in the next county.
I live in the same house, and I'm not supposed to go anywhere near her for 10 days.
Yeah, there you go.
But here's
so how can you start a new relationship if you're actually really following the rules? And I'm a stickler for, when it comes to COVID, I'm a stickler for following the rules.
One of the slogans of the many slogans that we've heard since this pandemic started was nobody's safe until everybody's safe. So basically there's this big drive to get the vaccines out into underdeveloped countries. Into Africa and into Asia. But a friend of mine has a Nigerian wife who was able to put a very different perspective on that in Nigeria, life is so bloody dangerous. There is such a constant threat of violence and wild animals and really nasty diseases that people don't really care that much about COVID. It's not. It's quite low on the list of threats to life out there. But it's our government's concerned about COVID spreading and mutating out there and then coming back to hit us. That's the concern. Well, it's not, our government doesn't only care about Nigerians, they care about what might happen in Nigeria that comes back to us.
Well, do you know what? I can understand that because, yes, I get from the Nigerian perspective that that there are bigger, more realistic dangers to worry about on a day-to-day basis. But looking at the global picture, you know, it's not so much kind of what happens to the Nigerians on a day-to-day basis. I'm not dismissing that. I know that's very important. But as well, you know, it's about them transmitting it to other countries as well, and the bigger, wider picture. Do you know what we've spent 10 minutes nearly, and we haven't even mentioned today's topic.
Let's mention today's topic. It's rather a controversial topic. It's a chap called Stan Romanek, or does he pronounce it Romanek?
Romanek, I believe.
Romanek. I know Americans will tend to pronounce their names in. So apologies to any Americans listening, but the Americans do tend to have their own pronunciations of European names that Europeans might say them differently. So Romanek, he calls himself.
And it's aluminium.
Well, actually, no. Apparently, aluminum is more correct. That in Britain we call it aluminium, so that it lines up nicely with other elements like cadmium and barium, and it has the nice ium ending. But actually, apparently, aluminum is the more correct.
All right. Well, I was just making a joke.
I know you were
off topic again already.
Yeah. Wait till I get.
We can't stay on topic.
Wait till I get on to tinfoil hats.
We have a lot to talk about with Stan, don't we?
So we're going to talk about Stan, who he's the subject of a movie which in the UK is free to watch on Amazon Prime. It's called Extraordinary: The Stan Romanek Story. I have to say it is very much his side of the story.
It is.
And everyone on the programme is there backing up his story. And where there has been some scepticism or doubt about his story, it's only kind of put up as an Aunt Sally to be knocked down again. So,
well, just to nitpick ever so slightly, you called it a movie. It's a documentary.
Yeah, a documentary movie.
Yeah. There's a different. Movies are fictional, tend to be fictional, which, I mean, some would argue that for Stan Romanek's story. I'm certain.
People do, yeah. I mean, watching it, I saw. He's got a vast amount of video footage to back up his claims of UFOs and ET visitations. Some of it, you could easily be faked. And Stan himself says the thing he's gotten the most flack about is there's a section where there's an ET looking in the window. He thought he had a peeping Tom, he says. So he set up a camera and they see his little ET pop up and look in the window and pop down again. And you see one bit where Stan actually goes into the room and looks out the window, then does this sort of hop back, which looks a bit like bad acting to me, actually. A bit staged, but yeah, you can see how that could easily be faked. You can go down to any kind of joke shop and get a model ET and a little puppet or something that pops up. The same with the one peeping around the French windows as well.
Well, the other one, the one peeping around the French windows, that one is a little more complex. You do see it blinking.
Yeah, but there could still be a puppet or someone in a costume.
Theoretically, yeah.
But the thing I decided was, well, this is... I guess you've got to be fundamentalist about it, like the Bible. You either believe it or you don't. And if any of this is faked, then that leads to suspicion that a lot more of it is faked.
Well, I don't know.
What I will say is...
I'm going to disagree with you, surprisingly.
I'm sure. What I'd say is, Stan, if you're listening, feel free to come and put me right. But all I'm saying is, I'm not saying you faked it. What I'm saying is, there was a lot of stuff there that I thought, well, I could probably fake that.
It was fakeable.
Fakeable, yes. So not necessarily faked, but fakeable.
Well, that's... so one of the things that strikes me about his story... is that this could almost be you get a list of all the different things that's happened to him or allegedly happened to him that he claims. It could be literally a list of every possible UFO type encounter that there is on the books.
Numbers
You've
1
got,
through 7, isn't it?
the Close Encounter, great, which we talked about in a previous episode. Well remembered. He talks about UFO sightings. He talks about psychic contact with aliens, and he talks about them putting equations in his head that he then writes out in his sleep. He talks about abductions. He talks about wounds, which leads on possibly to alien implants. He talks. The only thing I feel is almost missing is like crop circles, but even then there's like scorched round areas in his garden on the grass, and things like that. He talks about injuries being repaired. There's even EVP, which is electronic voice phenomenon, which is normally more associated with the paranormal. Aliens comes under that, Stu, with ghosts and such like, and contacting people from the other side. That he's had that done in his house, and that got allegedly positive results. There's references to shadowy government operatives like Men in Black almost threatening him or attacking him. Orbs plays a part in it. I'm just going through my list here. There's videos that we talked about of actual alien entities. He's had phone calls allegedly from alien entities. There's comes into the hybrid children thing. He's come up with stuff under hypnotic regression. It is just a list of every possible type of alien encounter that there's ever been.
I would like to point out the contrast between the movie, the documentary Extraordinary, and what happens if you Google Stan Romanek and look at his Wikipedia page. They come from two diametrically opposite directions.
Well, do you know what? I was in two minds whether we should be going into his criminal conviction. I think let's talk about it now.
Okay. Let's
to
clear the air.
Get it out the way a little bit. Yeah. So I'm a little bit uncomfortable talking about it, partly because of the subject matter, but in a bigger scheme of things, because there are things that he claims and alleges that, by giving it airtime, almost sounds like being an apologist for him.
But let's address the elephant in the room, because it's the first thing. Let me read the first sentence on his Wikipedia page. Stanley Tiger, in inverted quotes, Stan Romanek, born 1st of December 1962, is an American author, alien abductee claimant, and convicted sex offender for child pornography crimes. That's the first sentence you'll read on Wikipedia, so we can't not really address that. And to get a measure of the kind of person we're dealing with and his defence. On the 8th of August 2017, he was found guilty of felony possession of child pornography. On the 14th of December same year, he was sentenced to serve 2 years in a community corrections facility. He's now a registered sex offender in the Level 3 programme for severe deniers. So he's unable to use computers. I was going to suggest, Stan, if you want to ever get in touch with us and put us right on anything, that'll probably be a bit difficult for you. Although he's unable to use computers unmonitored or contact children under 18 without special approval. He was resentenced on the 30th of November 2020 to 10 years of sex offender intensive supervised probation for violating the terms of his original sentence. I don't know what he did to violate. It doesn't say what he did to violate his sentence, but I guess just using a computer unsupervised would do that.
That would do that, but it's probably not a good idea for us to speculate about what it might have been.
No, we're not trying to excuse him.
From both sides of that coin.
It's only mentioned in the documentary as an epilogue, and really is just words on the screen saying that he was convicted. However, and then it brings up news headlines of people apparently having child pornography put on their computers by a virus.
Well, when the documentary was released, so you've got to look at the timings of these things, he had been arrested. You didn't mention when he was arrested. You said about him being convicted in 2017. He was arrested back in February of 2014. So that's a long time. I don't know how long these things normally take. I'm thankfully very ignorant of such things.
And there are some gaps here. So what was he arrested for that made the police take his computer?
He was arrested under suspicion of child pornography.
But normally someone suspected of child pornography, it's because they're in communication with other paedophiles. And there doesn't seem to be any indication that he was.
No. So the end of the documentary, because you've raised that, they make a point of saying that he had been arrested, but that he will have his day in court and his side will be heard. And before you're too quick to judge, bear in mind there's all this. And yes, they come up with a number of headlines from different publications that claim evidence of viruses causing child pornography to appear on computers, and FBI planting child pornography on computers and things like that. They don't say this is what's happened to him, but they're saying keep an open mind.
It would be a very good way to discredit someone.
Well, yes, and it has been shown that there have been government programs that have done exactly that. So yes, there is that. In the run-up to his trial, Stan Romanek was saying an awful lot that he was going to blow all this up, and it was going to be all in court about how he'd been set up and what have you. I believe under the advice of his counsel, he didn't. And I think the judge made a comment about keeping the whole UFO thing out of the hearing completely. But yeah, I believe it was under the advice of his counsel, and I might be wrong about this, and I hold up my hands. This may be incorrect, but I believe he did plead guilty. Now, pleading guilty, we know historically, doesn't necessarily mean guilt.
No.
If the evidence is overwhelming, or you believe that there is simply no way out of a thing, the best thing you can do is plea bargain, then people will plead guilty even if they're not.
Well, do you know the majority? There are something like 3 million prisoners in the American prison system. Most of them have never seen the inside of a courtroom. They've been offered a deal, and they've been told, if you plead guilty, if you cop a plea for this, you'll get 5 years or whatever. If you don't, you'll go to court, and however much you might think you're innocent, there's a very good chance you'll be found guilty, in which case you'll never see the light of day again. You'll go to prison for 50 years or 100 years or whatever. They do.
Because it will save the state a lot of money.
It will save the state. And so
hearings are not cheap.
The majority of people in prisons in America have not been put there by a court. They've copped a plea. So,
yes, there is all that. The bottom line is he was found guilty, and he served his time, and as you say, he's currently under probation and under supervision for that. I think that's probably the best place to draw a line under it, and yeah, I don't know whether it'll come up again in other elements of this story. But I think it's not our place to draw any conclusions one way or another.
No, but there must be some case. Reason, how he came to be suspected of having this. I know from my own time in the intelligence services that one thing that they will do is traffic analysis. That, for instance, if I'm a known convicted paedophile, and I send you a large encrypted file, even if they can't break the encryption, they've got good reason to believe, to think, well, that's a good reason to put you on the network. And then if you further distribute that large encrypted file, you're then part of the network. So when they do round up the network, they'll be getting all these people who have shared these files. I mean, eventually they might be able to break the encryption, but it's generally by distributing things that you get caught. I've worked in places where they say, okay, we know that you might get junk in your email, you might get jokes or odd videos or whatever. We're not going to do anything if you just receive something, because nobody can help what they receive. But if you start passing this stuff on, then then there could be trouble. So
okay, that's that's food for thought, because as we do a number of podcasts, you're always sending me files. Some of them quite large files.
quite large files, yes. Just clarify for our viewers, I'm recording this on a standalone Zoom microphone, and at the end of this recording, I will transfer this over to Stu, and he will edit it into his own recording. Are you recording on the same device, or are you using something else? But he will integrate
No,
them.
I record directly into GarageBand now.
Right, so that's lifting the curtain on our magic here.
Other digital recorders and editing software is out there, folks.
Yes, other products are available.
Yes. Fantastic. Okay, so that's that side of the. I mean, one of the reasons I'm hesitant to kind of go into much is you will hear people say things like, "Well, there's no smoke without fire," and I honestly, I'm sitting so much on the fence with that whole thing. I would not like to call it one way or another. I'll be honest.
I don't think we have to particularly like someone or accept their lifestyle or anything like that to look into their claims. We're here to talk about UFOs and paranormal phenomena and such, extraterrestrial phenomena. And if someone who's making these claims happens to be, the worst kind of criminal, we can still take an interest in their claims and look at how well they stand up, which is what we're doing here. We're certainly not defending child pornography. Now, as I said, the Wikipedia page is much less kind to Romanek than his own claims. Now, this bit of video he's got with the extraterrestrial peeping through the window, or peeping around the French curtains.
Grandpa Gray, I believe.
Grandpa Gray has been called the Boo video. There's the alien popping up and saying boo, and that's what it looks like. Now, someone suggested that Romanek take a lie detector test over the authenticity of the Boo video. Romanek agreed to this test. When it was conducted later that year, he failed the question, is the Boo tape a hoax? He alleged without evidence that he had medical conditions that prevent a lie detector test from working on him. He also alleged, again without evidence, that he was set up by this guy George Norrie to fail. Romanek made an unverified claim that he consulted a video expert, stating without evidence that the Boo video would have cost $50,000 to fake. I don't believe that. A paranormal claims investigation group, like our friends in Utah perhaps, in this case it's the Rocky Mountain Paranormal Research Society, said they produced their video for about $90.
Yeah, I'm a filmmaker. I if he's getting charged $50,000 for it, then I can give him my card and do it for a lot less. Just to clarify one thing, that now you talk about a lie detector test.
Yeah.
Now, technically, it's not a lie detector test. It is a polygraph.
A polygraph. We call it a lie detector, but yeah, it's a polygraph.
We call it that, and it's a misnomer because it is not. A polygraph can't tell if you're lying. It can only measure, well, literally it's measuring different things.
It's measuring
meaning many,
yeah,
and graph, it's putting them on a graph. So it's measuring your heart rate, your stress levels, your how much you sweat, I think. There's a number of different things.
Your physical response to being asked a question and having to answer it, and which will then be interpreted by an expert. Now, polygraphs, they're used in the United States. They're not accepted in the United Kingdom or pretty much in anywhere else in Europe or even the rest of the world, because they're regarded as just
unreliable.
Unreliable, just pseudo-scientific claptrap.
Well, it measures stress, and here's the thing. It'd be very easy in a test like that. They go through a series of questions, is your name Stan Romanek? Well, that's a nice, easy one to answer. Yes, it is. Are you, however many years old? Yes, I am. Do you live in Venezuela? And give them an incorrect one to measure what a what a false positive looks like, and things like that. So they'll run through this test. When it comes to the important question, the one that you're there for, the one that your entire credibility hinges on, when they ask that question, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a blip in your stress levels just by them asking the question.
Yeah, well, I think not just the question, but they can just change their tone slightly.
Yep.
To make it more stressful. Anyone who's ever watched Who Wants to Be a Millionaire knows how in this country, Chris Tarrant, how he does that. When they answer the question and he says, "Are you sure? There's 10,000. There's 10,000 pounds riding on this. Are you absolutely sure?" Is that your final answer? And you can see them getting more and more stressed. So yeah. So here in the UK, officially, we think polygraphs are a load of bollocks.
Well, right. So I'm gonna. Sounds like I'm doing a U-turn now. I wouldn't say they're a load of bollocks. I would say they are useful. They can be very, very useful tools, but I think we need to exercise some caution in how we interpret the results and how much faith we put in the results. I think they're great for giving indications of stress, but they need to be more looked into rather than it's not a binary thing of like, are they telling the truth or are they not? It's not as simple as that.
It's down to interpretation, which is subjective. And which
it is. It is. Do you know what though? I mean, we've already hit our time for this episode. So what we're going to do, listeners, is this is going to be, it's our first, Neil, it's exciting, our first two-parter episode.
Wow.
That's discounting any live episodes. We still haven't, so we're recording this before we do our live episode that you will hopefully have seen or listened to. I'm expecting that one to be a multi-part episode.
I've made a conscious effort not to talk about anything that we're going to be talking about next week, which will actually be put out before this one. So,
well, we don't know yet because it's still not really been released properly yet. Here,
no.
So we will be finding out. I'm excited to see what we will have put out there.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what we're going to do in the past.
Yeah. Fantastic, but join us next week when we will be going into some of the nitty-gritty details of Stan Romanek's experiences, or alleged experiences, should I say. In the meantime, keep watching those movies and documentaries.
Not the kinds of movies that Stan Romanek had on his computer, The ones on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
I thought I'd better just put that in for safety.
Just for clarity.
Don't need to be seen to be exhorting anyone to do anything that could get them into big trouble.
No. Stay safe out there, folks, and don't do anything to get yourselves in trouble. Good advice always.
Always good advice.
Bye for now.
Bye for now. Bye-bye. Aliens Explored is a Fecal Films production in association with Juicy Falls. Music by Darren Mafucci and editing by Stu Jackson. Find us on Twitter or Facebook by searching Aliens Explored.
or visit us on aliensexplored.com.